Hello and welcome to the Success Showcase. I'm your host, Eric Lopkin with the Modern Observer Group. And with me, as always, is Chip Janiszewski from the Happiness and Success GPS. Chip, how you doing?
Doing great. How about you, Eric?
Doing fantastic.
Looking
We are
outside reminds me of the Mamas and Papas song California Dreaming. All the leaves are gone and the sky is gray.
Yes, we are heading into real winter weather with
Yeah.
most of the country is expecting record cold over the next week. So everybody needs to bundle up and keep warm.
Yeah, we're lucky. I think if we were 100 miles north today, we'd be getting a whole bunch of snow, but we're supposed to dodge that pretty good. So it's too early to snow mid-November. Don't like that stuff.
No, I'm not a big fan of it myself. But yeah, northern New England is getting a ton of snow. Parts of New York, I know all along the Canadian border, they're expecting.
Oh, well, there's a lot of happy skiers out there.
Yes. So we've talked a lot about time management. And most of us who are in business spend a lot of that time in meetings. So today we wanted to talk about how you can get the most out of a meeting and really keep meetings from being a waste of time, because so many of them really are. You spend a lot of time not really accomplishing much. So we're going to talk about how to run better meetings, what to do after a meeting, and how you can really get the most out of it. And I saw an interesting article just a few days ago talking about, and I don't remember which company it was, but it was a large tech company. And one of the things that they recently did was that they put a hard stop on all meetings at 30 minutes. No meeting was allowed to go more than half an hour. If you couldn't finish it then, that was it, meeting over.
Yeah, and that's a great thing to keep in mind because the bottom line is, we all have attention spans that don't last too long. And when we're going to lectures and things like that, they always say, dummy it down to 3 points that people can take away because they can't handle that much more. So going through long meetings is really, really not a good thing. So it's very, very important to start them on time and early if you possibly can. And the shorter they are, the better you're going to be off. Most importantly, you have to start out with knowing what you want to accomplish. You have to come up with a very, very set agenda that you give to everybody in the meetings ahead of time so that they can come in prepared. And the starting on time and ending early, especially the starting on time, is so, so important because subconsciously it shows respect for the people coming to the meeting. And if they come to the meeting and it starts late, they're going to think, okay, what's so different about doing that than anything else in the company? If I'm late for a deadline or this or that or whatever, heck, if the meeting can't start on time, why should I worry about that? So it really, really sets a precedent.
Right. And we really need to rethink what meetings are. I mean, yes, you need to know what the purpose of that meeting is. But does a meeting really have to be a bunch of people sitting around a table? Steve Jobs very famously used to have walking meetings where everybody would meet at the beginning of the meeting at a specific point, and the meeting took place while they were walking around the Apple campus. And by shifting these things out, you're really reinvigorating the people at the meeting. How many times have you been sitting at a meeting and somebody's talking and they're droning on, and you check your phone, you check your watch, your mind starts to drift? You need to find ways to avoid that happening in meetings. And these walking meetings are certainly one way of doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's really kind of outside the box. And if you can mix things up at the meeting, that's a great thing to do. One of the most important things, too, is everybody needs to know their role in every meeting. And this could be all the same person. I mean, it is when we do Westar for Connections and this and that, whatever. But you need a chairperson. You need somebody to keep the time. obviously you need active participants and you need a closer. And what it's so important for the timekeeper, for instance, is to keep people on time and to keep people from rambling on. For the person who's chairing the meeting, it's really important to start off with a purpose and get that out ahead of time so people understand what's going on. And then in closing the meeting, it's very, very important to come up with a who's doing what and what are we going to be doing by then. You got to have those different components of a meeting. Otherwise, as you're saying, all you're doing is just getting together and talk things through. And that's not really a meeting. That's like a lunch.
Right. We've talked a lot about presentations, and a meeting really needs to follow the same structure as a presentation does. You need to start by stating exactly what you're going to be covering in that meeting. Then you need to cover it. And then you need to state exactly what you covered and what needs to be done in follow up. So we've talked about presentations. First, you tell them what you're going to say, then you say it, and then you tell them what you said. The meeting is the same thing.
Yeah. In going through this, there was one article that I read that says you have to determine your meeting style. There's three styles of meetings that are talked about. One, which you were just talking about, which is an information share. That's more or less of really a lecture on what's going on. Number two would be having a creative discussion about that. And then the third type of meeting would be actually the follow up for all these different things, which is the consensus decision meeting. So that's got to be determined up front. And again, we talked about developing a plan. It's really, really important to send out a one-page summary of your meeting beforehand so that employees know what to expect and they're able to participate in things. And one of the things this is going to help do is if it's a little bit larger meeting and you have people who normally don't participate and are a little bit shy, they're going to be more in the know as to what's going on, and they're more likely to contribute to the meeting because you need to have their input too. Sometimes the quiet people have the best ideas.
Absolutely. You really need to make your meeting an open forum where everybody feels comfortable contributing. And let's be clear that keeping the meeting on track and making meetings efficient, they're not simply the job of the person running the meeting. If you're attending a meeting and you've gotten a handout in advance, it's important that you actually read that information. If you've been given an agenda, if you've been given an information packet, anything that you've been given to prepare for that meeting, you need to take it seriously and actually take the time to go through that material. That way, you don't have to spend part of the meeting reiterating what was already sent out.
Yeah, we're actually going to be talking a little bit about what to do at networking follow-up meetings, which is really how to help each other out. And what you were talking about, no matter what meeting you're going to, again, get the information out ahead of time as far as what you're doing. Then everybody's got to do their homework before getting there. And that should be listed there in that one page that you're sending out. To prepare for this meeting, please do this, 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 and this. And if it involves researching things and so on and so forth, you got to put aside the time to do that. And obviously, with the internet out there and a lot of other different resources, the more prepared you are, the more successful the meeting is going to be. It's going to be a whole lot quicker. So everybody's got to do their homework, and it's really a function of whoever's running that to get something out ahead of time so that they know perfectly clearly what's expected of them before and when they show up.
Exactly. It's so important for people to understand why they're having a meeting. Especially in corporations, it's very common that, well, we need to figure something out. Let's call a meeting. And, you spend an hour in a meeting discussing something that could have been taken care of in 2 minutes over email. So you really need to understand, is this meeting necessary? And by having all of that information ahead of time, you can actually make the decision that, yes, we need to discuss this. It needs to be face to face. And there's a purpose. And that's key because there are so many meetings we have, especially in corporations, that it's looked at as, Oh, we have this meeting every week at this time, and the meeting drones on, and there's no real purpose to it. And ostensibly it's, well, we need to keep everybody up to date. But do you really need a regular meeting to do that? Can that be done through a conference call? Can that be done through a simple email? You really need to find the best way to share the information so that you're not wasting hours and hours of time.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know if you folks out there have heard about the win philosophy, but it's what's important now. And could a meeting be less or more important than people actually working on the projects that they're supposed to be working on and deadlines and so on and so forth? So a time management principle is to look at that. What's your priorities? And if a meeting is just a get together to talk things through and it's going to get in the way of working on projects and meeting deadlines and helping out clients and so on and so forth, you have to reshuffle having these meetings to do the things that are important.
Right. You shouldn't be having meetings for the sake of having meetings. If a meeting is necessary to fulfill a function, then absolutely. You schedule a meeting, you put together an agenda, you put together a schedule, and keep to that schedule so that you're not running over. That's something else, because for an attendee to come to a meeting, they're blocking out their time. And usually they'll block out, half an hour, whatever it says the meeting is going to be. But right after that time, they've got other work to do, other projects to complete. So it's really bad form to just let meetings run on because you're keeping people from doing other things.
Yeah, and again, it's a perceived really lack of organization for the people who are calling the meetings to let them run over, and that filters through everybody there. And if they're thinking that, hey, the boss is disorganized and doesn't really respect time, if I'm a little bit late, the same thing's going to happen here. Whereas if he's really respecting things, and again, maybe getting things done a couple minutes early so you can wrap things up sooner, that's really, really important too. But to keep the thing going, you have to have a follow up afterwards. You have to have tasks and so on and so forth that have to be done by specific dates. These have to be in writing, sent out right after the meetings. They have to be monitored so that it is a process. I mean, we've talked a lot about goal setting and projects and that kind of thing. And that's really, really important to make sure things get done in a timely manner.
Absolutely. That should be the last part of your meeting, is going over who is going to do what task, when that task is due, and make sure everybody knows exactly what's expected of them. If you're having a meeting, it means everybody needs to be there. So they need to know what comes next. And quite frankly, if you're having a meeting where there isn't any follow up, where nobody has to do anything next, the meeting probably wasn't necessary. So when you're wrapping up, go through all of the tasks that need to be done, assign people to do them, assign deadlines for them. And then when you finish the meeting, all of that information should be compiled and sent out to all of the attendees so that there's no question of who's doing what and when it's being finished.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so important to begin with what's expected and going right through doing the homework and making sure the meeting's timed properly, coming up with that action plan, and then having the accountability to make sure everything is done.
Exactly. There are times when meetings are necessary, there are times when it's not. When it is necessary, running it properly and going through everything keeps it from being a waste of time. You want to run effective meetings. You want them to be productive. Now, we've been talking about primarily business meetings where people have to make a decision, but that's not the only